Hello, everyone. Welcome to the speaker series on zero waste innovators in Oxford County's institutional sector. This is Future Oxford's series has been looking into local examples of zero waste in the commercial, residential, and today, institutional sectors. We're talking to leaders in their field about how we can look at our own workplaces, our own businesses, and industry to create less waste. So my name is Carrie, and I am a member of the Future Oxford Zero Waste Subcommittee. We're going to pull in Dennis Guy, who works for Oxford County, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Future Oxford and what that is. Hi, Dennis.
All right, well, thank you, Carrie. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. So welcome to all to our third event as part of a 3-event series showcasing some of Oxford's waste innovators. For those of you joining us tonight, thanks for tuning in. Future Oxford is excited to be supporting the 3 sessions this month. 2 weeks ago, we had Nancy from Red Buttons and Danielle from Wild Comfort Body Care. Last week, we had Brian Smith, and tonight we have Tom Butler as well as Chris Marion. So for those of you tuning in from the recording in the future, we are glad to have you check it out as well. By now, we're probably relaxing from this 3-gig tour and more than likely putting our minds to another series sometime in the new year. As Carrie mentioned, my name is Dennis Guy. I'm here on behalf of the Future Oxford Partnership, which is a group of passionate champions that believes not only in the vision of an Oxford where communities, economies, and environments thrive together, but also in the Oxford of today, which in many cases already has communities, economies, and environments thriving together. I recently heard someone just last week say when they were referring to community sustainability that it's who we are. And that really resonates with me here in Oxford. So I won't take up too much of your time from our guest speakers this evening, but I do want to try and draw a line of sight to connect the dots between tonight's event and the vision of Future Oxford. About 5 or 6 years ago, a group of people determined that Oxford could benefit from a county-wide look at community sustainability. So individuals and organizations and businesses and governments all came together to determine what they thought is most important to maintaining our high quality of life here, and also to create an inspiring vision for everyone to aim for. And so the result is the Future Oxford Community Sustainability Plan, which was officially released in 2015, and it's structured into 3 pillars: community, economy, and environment. And the plan itself documents 70 key actions to build upon the sustainable practices that are already present here in Oxford. And over these 5 years, 94% of those actions have seen progress made by a broad range of community stakeholders. And those actions continue to see progress today. So throughout these past 5 years, Future Oxford has coordinated and or participated in a number of initiatives, including an in-person version of the speaker series, which was hosted at various libraries throughout the county, showcasing things like local entrepreneurs with sustainable business practices. One of them, we invited residents to learn about energy efficient buildings, and we also hosted a workshop on electric and hybrid vehicles. This fall, we've brought the speaker series kind of back to life, but in a virtual format. And to our pleasant surprise, we've had some good turnouts, showing this that not only do we have some well-regarded waste innovators in Oxford, but many of us are waste innovators ourselves. So with that, I'll turn it back to Carrie, and we can get right into tonight's conversation.
Thanks so much, Dennis. That was really a really good overview of what Future Oxford is. And for more information on that, go to futureoxford.ca to learn more about the different groups within Future Oxford. Now, if you're watching today on the live broadcast, it is interactive, and you're encouraged to use the chat feature. You'll see it on the side. You're able to type in your questions, your comments. This is thanks to the support of the Oxford County Library System, and we're going to meet a little bit later the System Support Librarian, Sarah McDonald, and she's going to give us some resources at the end. So we have a great team for Future Oxford Communications, as well as some partnerships and a lot of innovation. So if you have questions, comments throughout the presentation today, use the chat feature, and we'll see if we can pull some of those questions in to ask our guests live online. So without further ado, let us introduce our first guest. Chris Marion is the Director of Capital Projects at the Woodstock General Hospital. He's also the lead of the Environmental Advisory Committee also at the hospital here in Woodstock. So we'd like to pull in Chris Marion and have a little talk with him. Hi, Chris. How are you?
How are you doing?
Good, thanks. We're really pleased to have you here, not only because you're our local hospital, our largest one in Oxford County, but we're also pleased that you have lots of waste innovations that you are working on at the Woodstock Hospital. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your work at the Woodstock Hospital.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I am the Director of Capital Projects. So we manage a lot of our energy projects at the hospital, as well as just general operations. Part of my role, I have the opportunity to work on our Environmental Advisory Committee, which brings a lot of opportunity for us to do a lot of good for the environment and provide a lot of innovation to the organization.
Excellent. So among the people that are on the advisory committee, are it all people that work at the hospital?
Yeah, and it's a mixture of management as well as frontline staff, really trying to get a collaborative environment with ideas.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I think a lot of times when you have lots of different partners pulled in, same with our Zero Waste Future Oxford Committee, there's a lot of different partners, so it's really nice to have everybody's input. So I hear you have a presentation of some slides, so
Absolutely.
maybe we can have a look at those images and you can guide us through them.
Perfect. All right, if you want to go to the next slide here. So from the beginning of our journey towards sustainability, our senior management and board really understood the importance of environmental stewardship and really saw the correlation between sustainable hospital and creating a healing environment for our patients, as well as creating a healthy work environment for our staff. Patient care is obviously our #1 priority, and it really shaped the design of our new hospital that we currently have. So the design of the hospital really was based around trying to create this healing environment. And the way it accomplished that is through a central courtyard and a bunch of pods, which gives natural light and the ability to have fresh air come into the patient rooms. It also allowed for staff to be able to escape the busyness of the hallways and connect with nature. When we moved into the new building, it was really our beginning of our journey to sustainability. The staff really started to see a lot of change and was able to embrace that change, and we started to form our Environmental Advisory Committee. I want to go to the next slide. We started looking at what we could do with the facility and how we could do better. One of the things was waste diversion, and we wanted to know where we were going. A lot of waste that we produce, we're kind of limited in terms of what we can do with, such as biohazardous or sharps. But we wanted to see what we had, and we didn't really know what to do. We never done this before. So we kind of looked at how we manage energy. And the way we do with energy, we create a baseline with data and let the data point us in the right direction. So we brought in a team to do what they call a waste audit. So a team of people came in with hazmat suits, and they literally went through every single bit of our garbage, sorted through, weighed them, took pictures, and saw what belonged and what didn't belong. They also went through all our recycling to see, are we recycling correctly? Is the recycling contaminated or not? And they compiled it all into one report. And as you can see from here, our baseline data is currently that we were diverting 28.74%, but unfortunately 71.26% of all the garbage produced was going to the landfill. We compared that against other hospitals in the province, and it was about average. In some areas, we were actually above average, which was giving us credit for some of the hard work that we were already doing. But we wanted to do better. You can go to the next slide. So what the audit gave us was they actually broke down all the different areas that are general waste. And one area came very apparent, if you can see, is organics. So 23% of all of our general waste that was going to the landfill was organic waste. And we didn't have any organic program at the hospital at all. You can go to the next slide. So we decided we wanted to develop an organic program because it seems like it would have the highest impact on our waste diversion. So to do this, we started calling other hospitals, and we asked how they were doing that, how they adapted the program. Currently in the county, that was something that wasn't offered for curbside. So we started looking at the logistics of bringing it in. We contacted our hauler, and we got a contract in place. But then we also started thinking, where are we going to store the organic waste? Unfortunately, in a hot day, if we stored it outside, it'd probably produce some odors. So we were able to make room in our existing waste refrigerators to store the material and started developing a plan on how we're going to pick up it in certain areas. We created a 3-step plan to implement organics in the program. The first area that we decided to implement it was in our main kitchen. Based on that waste audit we had, it actually showed which departments were producing how much waste. That was the maximum amount of organic waste was coming from the cafeteria area. So by doing it in the kitchen area, we could actually control the environment. They were all staff members, there was no public. So through education, we'd be able to get them to adapt to the new program. The kitchen had a lot of coffee grounds, old donuts. So there's a lot of opportunity. As we started implementing the program, we noticed one of the main ways of us getting rid of organic was actually through an incinerator. And we had some incinerators throughout the building. So we started evaluating this. And we didn't feel like it was the right thing to do by putting waste down the drain. So we decided to actually eliminate all the incinerators and make ourselves a little bit more responsible to handle the waste on site. As the program developed and we started having staff buy-in, we decided that this next stage of the project, so stage 2 for the organics, was to move it into some of the public areas. And we installed waste sorting centers in our main cafeteria. To do this, we also decided we had to take pictures of the actual products that we sold in the cafeteria, because it kind of can be confusing to someone knowing where to put your recyclable materials. So we took the pictures and to try to make it as simple as possible for the public. Unfortunately, we actually found that we weren't getting very good quality recyclables, and our organics was so contaminated that we ended up throwing it into the garbage, which was kind of counterintuitive. So we started changing the sizes of the faceplates, and we added a lid to the organics bin, which means if you wanted to use it, you had to lift it up and then put your waste in. And that actually really helped us with our contamination and being able to use the organics. The third stage of this project was to move it into the patient areas, which we're actually not currently on that stage yet, and we're planning that currently. But in addition to organics, we also realized a big part of our waste diversion was public awareness and staff education. So every year we have a big Earth Day event, and we have a lot of community partners that come in. We have the city, the county, Woodstock Transport. We have some education on electric vehicles, solar, but we also have education by our waste management contract, and just explain to people what can be recycled and what they can do to increase our diversion. Number 6 plastic is always important to us. Number 6 plastic is used for Tim Horton lids. Tim Hortons coffee is a very important fuel source for our staff and visitors at the hospital. But unfortunately, a lot of people do throw their Tim Horton cups in the garbage, including the lids. So we always try to encourage people to become aware that the lids are actually recyclable and to remove those instead of throwing them out. Go to the next slide. So we started researching other means of decreasing our diversion and came across something called pollution prevention. So it's more of a proactive approach to prevent waste right from the source. It's also known as source reduction. So I think in society, we're very reactive instead of being proactive to problems. And if you look at waste, we really accumulate a lot of garbage. And then after the fact, we go, can we recycle some of this? When really the question we should be asking is, do we need to produce this waste at all? If you can go to the next slide. So we started to look at how we could implement source reduction as part of our waste diversion strategy at the hospital. One of the programs that we implemented came from our frontline staff, which is always good, and it was with our OR linen wraps. So currently, at the hospital, we have to sterilize our instruments, and obviously we got to make sure they're clean and not contaminated before they go to the operating theaters. So there's a wrap around them to make sure that nothing gets in there, and the wrap's only ever opened once into the OR itself. Unfortunately, these wraps were made out of plastic and could not be recycled. So when the staff brought this forward saying, hey, can we do something about that? We looked into it, and it turns out there was a linen alternative that could be laundered. And the good thing about that, it could be used over and over again. And at the end of the life, they had a program to recycle those textiles as well. So this was a good example of source reduction, where we don't have a waste product that we have to recycle. We've eliminated it completely, And that program alone diverts 4.45 tons of plastic from the landfill every year. We also started looking at how we were buying things and doing more sustainable procurement and asking the question, what is the waste? What is the product when it comes in? What are we going to do at the end of its life? And that really allowed us to be more proactive in terms of our purchasing. One of the contracts we had with a hospital supplier that basically was a wholesaler, and they gave us a bunch of different objects. They were bringing in cardboard boxes. I guess there was enough demand from hospitals such as ourselves. They moved over to a plastic tote system for delivering. You can see in what the pictures below. And with all those totes, if you imagine if that was cardboard, that'd be quite a bit of cardboard that we would have to recycle. But this kind of more proactive approach of eliminating cardboard completely and going to reusable totes helps decrease our total number of cardboard that we need to recycle completely. Again, a good example of source reduction. You can go to the next slide. So we've had a lot of very successful projects, and every year we do hauler records, and we record our waste numbers every year, and we report that with the Ontario Hospital Association. They give you a green scorecard. But periodically we do the waste audit. So in 2019, we did another waste audit where we brought in a team wearing their hazmat suits, and they went through all of our garbage and our recyclables and gave us another report. And if you can see, for over the past 5 years, our initiatives, we're actually able to decrease our amount of waste going to the landfill by 15% over the past 5 years. The organization has a goal by 2025 to get a rate of 50% diversion, which we're well on track, and to actually exceed that goal right now, which is very good. You can go to the next slide, please. Our 2019 waste audit 2 gave us some really good data. If you look at the kind of the darker gray, that's the garbage going to the landfill, and the green is the number that we're diverting. So if you remember, what the first thing that we talked about was the organic, and 23% of all of our waste was organic that was going to the landfill. If you look at the chart, we have over 80% of all of organics now is being diverted. So it's a very successful program, and we haven't even reached stage 3 of that program, and we're already seeing great success. Another program which I didn't get to talk about is our electronic waste. We're nearly at 100% diversion. There's a few categories in there that's going to give us some future opportunities. So such as rubber and textiles. Unfortunately, some things like medical tubing we can't recycle, but those are definitely categories in plastic that we're going to look at increasing those numbers going forward. If you can go to the next slide, please. So overall, in terms of our strategy here at the hospital, I think some of the major lessons learned is having senior management support these projects has been critical to our success, as well as our board supporting it. We wouldn't be able to do the good work without their help. Staff engagement. Our staff are excellent at the hospital, and they care about the environment. And really, if they didn't buy into these programs, we wouldn't have these numbers that I'm showing. So their hard work is definitely showing here. And then the data that we gathered has been absolutely critical. Creating a baseline to see where you are and being able to measure against that allows you to see what programs work, what programs don't. Then really the last one is really having champions throughout your organization that can take on these programs and really push it through to the finish line. There we go, and that's everything for that presentation.
Thanks, Chris. That was really interesting. I loved the part where you had a question about, do we need to produce this waste at all, right? I think that sometimes we forget that. You're right. We get to the end product and we have something and we think, okay, can we recycle this? But we have to think about it a little further upstream. How did you discover, or who discovered, that lifting the lid on the compost or in the organics was the thing that was going to help divert a little bit more waste or inappropriate things so it wasn't contaminated?
So I can't claim credit for that. One of the things we like to do is we like to reach out to other people that have been quite successful. So Conestoga Mall in Waterloo, we did some research, and they won a lot of awards for their waste diversion. So we reached out to management there and asked them how they implemented their organics program. And they told us about some of the trials they had, and they had basically the same problem we had. They actually did a complete separate container for organics, but they said by adding a lid, usually the people that were maybe more negligent to sorting were probably less likely to want to lift up a lid to take the time to do that, and that worked out very well for them. So we kind of borrowed that idea from them.
Yeah, sometimes it's simple little things that will make a big difference, right? That's fascinating. So how and why has the Woodstock General Hospital prevented electronic waste and printer cartridges from finding its way into landfills? Maybe tell me a little bit about your e-waste or different waste, how it's have been diverted, or how does that work?
So, I mean, e-waste is obviously important. I mean, the first thing we start off with e-waste is making sure that all our hard drives are wiped, because obviously from a confidentiality point of view, we want to make sure that we're not throwing anything out. But it's a few different things. E-waste can also have toxic materials in it, which isn't good to put to landfill. I think e-waste is a growing concern. A lot more e-waste is being produced. A lot of products aren't maybe lasting as long. And it's really important that we do have a sustainable program in place to handle it properly. There's a lot of precious metals involved with e-waste. So by recycling that, we're reducing the amount of raw material that's going to need to be supplied for new materials, which I think is important. But it's also really about diverting this from the landfill and finding programs that work. We were also actually very careful about who we gave the e-waste to. There's been issues with e-waste being shipped overseas, which we didn't want to contribute to. So we were very careful about who's going to be sorting this out and who's going to be recycling that to make sure it's done in an ethical way.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Someone who has never worked in an institution like a hospital might think that some hazardous waste is produced and therefore maybe everything would end up being incinerated. Why have you decided at the Woodstock General Hospital to pull wooden pallets out of these streams?
Well, wooden pallets are usually worked for materials that are coming into the hospital, and they're not exposed or contaminated by hazardous waste. So it wouldn't make sense just to incinerate this if there's no exposure. Obviously, pallets are a good example of something that can be reused and shouldn't just be a single-use product.
Excellent. Are there other successes in waste reduction or diversion you'd like to share? How do your recycling initiatives contribute to health in other parts of the world, or why is that important to you or the Woodstock General Hospital?
So one of the other ways we've been diverting, which is actually a recent program, is actually came about through COVID. So we use a lot of single-use PPE, so masks, gloves, gowns, and unfortunately they all contribute to our general waste stream. But during COVID, we saw a lot of issues with supplies, which changed prices and availability of products. One of the things came up for us was the disposable gowns. We actually were able to source a local linen alternative, which again is an example of source reduction, which will definitely help our diversion numbers. I'm very excited to see the data on that and how that's going to help us with our diversion.
Yeah, you have a lot of different programs going on. That sounds really interesting, and I'm really glad to hear that you're already ahead of your 2025 goal of 50% diversion. It'd be interesting to see what happens by 2025 if you're able to meet much higher than 50% diversion. Woodstock General Hospital has a broader plan for waste diversion, including wastewater and energy production from solar panels. What motivates you and people you work with to think about these innovations, or how these things come up in your conversations?
So I think as a public organization, we want to be leaders, and as technology develops, we want to implement them if it makes sense. So, for example, renewable energy has become more and more affordable. Not only is it the right thing to do, it's also fiscally responsible. There's a payback that can be offered. So I think we want to be innovative. I think the big thing is, I think a lot of people say that if they look at their organization and process, you don't want to just do something because that's the way you've always done it. There's sometimes better ways of doing it. And I think that's a good thing about our organization and our management. We embrace change. If something makes sense, we're willing to give it a look and see if we can implement it ourselves.
Have you come across any resources or things that your hospital community specifically or any institution could use as a resource to look to?
In terms of waste diversion or sustainability?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I think one of the things that we have is there's a hospital group. So part of the Ontario Hospital Association, they developed a green scorecard. So as a way of rating hospitals in terms of how well they're doing environmentally. Through that forum, we were able to kind of learn from each other and almost a little bit of friendly competition among each other to kind of do better than one another in terms of our waste diversion or energy intensity.
Yeah, it's good. Sometimes competition is kind of a good way to motivate people, right? Especially
Absolutely.
maybe interdepartmental competitions to see which department can reduce the most amount of waste. Excellent. I don't see any questions through the chat function, so I think we'll leave it there for right now. But thank you so much for joining us, Chris. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up for today?
Well, I think that was everything. Thank you for the opportunity for us to share our waste diversion and some of the good things we're doing at the hospital. And I think the county's been doing a lot of good work as well. And we're happy to support in any way we can.
Thanks so much. Excellent. Thanks so much, Chris. We'll hopefully we'll talk again later. That was Chris Marion from the Woodstock General Hospital. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate having local content with our hospital and other institutions. So that was really interesting, and I hope you enjoyed that. And we can look back on those slides a little bit later once this is posted for everyone to see at multiple times in the future. So not only are hospitals one type of institution that we're looking at locally, we also are looking at schools and institutions far and wide. So before we introduce our next guest, I just wanted to let you know that the next section, it was pre-recorded, so it might have a slight bit of technical difficulties. Please stay with us if that's the case. But we're hoping to meet Tom Butler, who is an educator, local organic farmer, as well as a teacher. So we're going to talk about institutional waste in schools, as well as some background that he has as well too. So we'll pull in Tom Butler's interview, and then we'll talk again with me soon.
We are recording.
All right. Welcome, Tom Butler. Thank you for joining us today. We are very pleased to have you on our chat for Future Oxford in our Zero Waste division. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. So tell us a little bit about your background as an organic farmer, an environmental consultant, and an environmental advisor for the city of Woodstock. A little bit of background would be really interesting to hear about you.
Sure. Well, for the past nearly 10 years, I guess, I've run a small-scale organic market garden at my family's farm, which is just south of Woodstock, and I've done direct market sales at the Woodstock Farmers Market, so selling seasonal produce, everything from tomatoes and lettuce and kale to garlic and peppers, as well as some other specialty products. So got into that after university, my university career, because I was trying to think of what concrete actions I could have in my life that could make a difference, a positive environmental difference. So one of the things I was learning about in the, sort of my final year of university was sustainable agriculture and the importance of local food systems that are ecologically based, that take care of the soil and incorporate natural ecosystems into the farming practices. So I started with that, and through that I made a bunch of connections at the market, and that's actually how I got a job with a local environmental advisory company. So we did a lot of environmental site assessments where we were looking at the environmental conditions of sites across southern Ontario, and we would develop action plans with the site owners for how they could remediate contaminated sites or move forward with managing environmental conditions on site. And I've been on the Woodstock Environmental Advisory Committee as a member, and currently I'm the vice chair of the committee, and we advise council on different environmental matters within the city of Woodstock that we believe are important that they either address or things that are brought forth within the community. So some of the things we've done in the past, we helped to organize the Reuse-a-Palooza events, which have happened at the fairgrounds in Woodstock, along with Brian Smith. And we've also done the Woodstock Seed Library at the Woodstock Public Library. We've done some ecological restoration at some parks in town as well, where we've converted large portions of grassy areas into native wildflower habitat and pollinator habitat to support local pollinators.
Great. Those are all really very interesting things, all great and local right in our community. How does your volunteer work in these areas help reduce waste or make sort of zero waste actions in our community?
Well, through the Environmental Advisory Committee, we have partnered with various other organizations with the Reuse-a-Palooza events and other things to try and promote waste reduction within the city of Woodstock. We've done things where we try to sell the green cones or compost bins, because we're trying to promote, obviously, the city of Woodstock does not have a green bin program where we have curbside collection. But in reality, I think if everyone could compost in their backyard and could have a green cone, those things are probably more environmentally sustainable than actually having a curbside collection. I think curbside collection is something in the future that hopefully we could look into, but we've promoted these small scale initiatives that can happen in people's backyards that help to reduce the amount going to the landfill.
Yeah, and you are also a teacher. So at Cass, College Ave Secondary School, you're involved with the Eco Schools program there, I hear. And for those unfamiliar with Eco Schools, can you tell us what that is?
Sure. So Eco Schools is a national, it's sort of a national, I don't know if you call it a body or an organization or what, but Eco Schools, what they do, they will certify schools across the country based on environmental initiatives that are being implemented at the school. So whether you're an elementary school or a high school or a private school or whatever it is, you can apply each year, and your application has a variety of different fields they have to fill out. So things such as waste reduction, energy reduction, environmental education, outreach, all of these different things. And you kind of go through and you do these check marks, you make comments about, well, what is my school doing? What are we doing with the teachers, with the students to make an environmental difference? And then what happens is you will get certified each year. So you get certified based on the initiatives that are happening at your school. And I think it's bronze, silver, and gold. There might even be some higher levels of certification. And your certification lasts for a year. After that, you can recertify the next year. And there are sort of ways that you can hopefully improve upon your environmental ecological initiatives at your school and sort of continue to advance towards the next level of certification.
Excellent. There's a number of schools in Oxford County that are participating in that. What are the students at your school working on?
Well, this year has been it's been slow due to COVID, just because essentially all groups and sports teams, extracurriculars have been canceled for the year. So we can't meet with students in person, which it makes it hard to get student involvement when there's not necessarily a face-to-face thing. I don't even see students as much from previous years as I normally would. So we're kind of in a smaller bubble. So to be able to rally the troops, I guess you could say, or get the students involved has been difficult this year. But in previous years, some things we've done are waste audits, energy audits. We're looking at getting an outdoor classroom going, an outdoor space where we can take classes outside and learn. Previous Eco School teachers that have run it have done various other audits as well of waste and energy.
Do you have an aim or a goal that after COVID or in next years and previous years that you want to look at working on with your students? Like maybe something else that you wanted to add in, or maybe an aim to shoot for?
I think my main interest is a lot of sustainable agriculture stuff because of my background with my farm. Definitely looking at maybe getting a small scale fruit orchard going at the school, that the fruit would be in season when the students are in school, because if it's available in the summer, not as easy. So maybe having some apple trees and other mixed trees so that we can show students ways that you can have local food and how to produce it, and all the things that go along with growing it. So that's one of my interests. It's certainly an outdoor classroom as well is something I think I will be involved with, but more so the sort of schoolyard greening and different hands-on activities that the students can learn about local sustainable agricultural production is sort of my goal with it, but certainly will continue to incorporate the things of enhancing and promoting waste reduction within the school and energy reduction as well.
Are the students amenable to these ideas? Do some of them come up with ideas of their own, or have any of them been involved with any of the advocacy about climate change?
I haven't had a lot of experience with students bringing forth things yet. I do certainly want to promote that it's not just a teacher led and run thing, but to get a group of students that sort of feels that this is something that they are involved in, because it can't just be organized by the teachers. It has to be promoted by the teachers. But the next generation of environmental leaders need to be getting involved in making decisions that have an impact right now, because not only will that give them some confidence in taking part in community action and their own abilities to create change, but also giving them skills that will be transferable later on in their careers, whatever route they might take.
Yeah. And how about you in your own life? Are there any specific zero waste challenges that you've come across that you're looking to tackle?
We compost everything we can, and we have green cones and a lot of things. I maybe maybe it's cheese consumption. We just eat we just love cheese so much, and that's like one of these things that's hard to it's hard if there's plastic waste involved with cheese typically, right? So it's either eating less cheese, which I don't know will happen, or looking for ways that we can maybe source cheese locally without having the plastic waste, because
it's Oxford County. You need the cheese.
Yeah,
Yes.
you need the cheese, right? So, I can't think of anything in particular. We are quite aware of our own household in terms of the waste we produce. And I'm not saying we are perfect by any means, but certainly always looking to make improvements and make changes. We previously used to go to bulk barn to get bulk goods in reusable containers, and now that's stopped because of COVID. So we do what we can, but certainly as time goes on, we just the need for less stuff, I think, is a big thing for everyone. It's like, what do we really need? We have essentially everything we could ever want, but somehow you always accumulate more things that have packaging that goes along with it and all these other environmentally potentially harmful effects.
Yeah. Are there other resources locally that you use to reduce waste, such as your bulk barn example, or what new ways do you see Oxford County moving towards more of a big system change in waste reduction?
Well, I think we have been on the environmental committee. We've been discussing this a lot. We've come to not some resistance from some of the people in higher levels, some of the employees that we work alongside with the committee, but I would say there are some things coming down from the provincial level that are going to be changing the way we address waste. I think there was just an announcement made this week from the Ford government in terms of making it so that the producers of the waste, so the companies that produce the goods that have the waste involved, they will be the ones that somehow are responsible for ensuring that it's disposed of in the proper way. So I think we were not held in limbo, but we were sort of told to hold off on our own initiatives locally to wait to see what would happen from the provincial level, because if we were to implement something new and then something then supersedes that from the provincial level, then all the work that we would have put in would have been for naught. So I think we're kind of going to be seeing what happens at the provincial level, and then seeing what that looks like, and then we can move forward with developing plans as to how we can incorporate that into our local community, and how we can really reduce waste as a community, not just as a province.
Yeah, I think that is a big thing, right? There's always changes happening to either waste management or the waste stream, the blue bin program with producer responsibility. So it's really interesting to see how different groups are adjusting with these changes that are coming into place. So we're interested to see what the Woodstock Environmental Advisory Committee and eco schools and everybody is interested in doing. So thank you, Tom, for joining us today.
Yep.
And we really appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks very much, Carrie.
Thanks, Tom. We have two school boards in our area, the London District Catholic School Board and the Thames Valley District School Board. We have, on the Thames Valley side, they have a conservation and demand management plan that you can find on their website under our board, and then link down to plans and reports. And that conservation and demand management plan looks mostly at energy. So it talks about individual schools and the kilowatt hours they use and the greenhouse gas emissions listed per school. So it doesn't specifically talk about waste per school generated. That would be interesting to know if that information is available. But also, they have a strategic priorities in action report from November of 2019 that states the commitment made in 2017 to ensure all schools have water bottle filling stations. Perhaps we can see that graphic now. The water bottle filling stations should be completed in 3 years, starting in 2017, and that should be ahead of schedule. So most schools in the Thames Valley region have water bottle filling stations like you see here. It's not only a water fountain, but you can refill your water bottle there, and it helps to promote less usage of plastic water bottles. And they were ahead of schedule on that, according to that last report. So that sounds really interesting to see. Perhaps all of the schools now are have these installed already. Also, if you or your child or a grandchild perhaps attends the London District Catholic School Board schools, they have some environmental initiatives listed on their website. They have surveyed parents, principals, teachers, staff, and trustees who overwhelmingly stated that climate change is a concern to them. Updating energy efficient systems, lighting retrofits have been done in a lot of their schools and buildings, and board-wide, they've been able to reduce 10% of their greenhouse gas emissions. So they also have energy reduction on their radar. Some of the suggested school-based initiatives and at home as well too. So you can see comments and suggestions from their webpage of what to do at your house, as well as some of the board initiatives. So as you can see, schools, hospitals, different institutions, among those other ones that we didn't speak with today, a lot of them do have zero waste on the radar, and they're looking at the future and working on ways to reduce waste. So if we could just pull in Dennis Guy to say some thank yous at the end. Oh, sorry, I'm apologizing. Our next guest is actually Oh, it is Dennis. Yay. Hi, Dennis. You can, how about, oh, okay. So we'll come back to Dennis because
I was just going to go with you. It was
okay.
okay.
Don't worry, you're on it. But really, it's supposed to be Sarah McDonald, System Support Librarian for Oxford County Library. You take it away, Sarah.
Hello. Well, thank you so much again. And so yeah, sorry for some technical difficulties that we've had tonight, but we're plowing through. So thanks again for inviting me on tonight. It's been a great third session, and I am back to give some library recommendations. So if you are not yet a member of the Oxford County Library, but you live here in the county, you can have a library card and sign up at any of our 14 branches. We are offering curbside pickup at the majority of our branches and limited in-site service in Ingersoll and Tillsonburg. So tonight I've got some book recommendations, and I also want to highlight one of our resources for you as well, which I think ties in to a lot of what we've been talking about the last few sessions. And so this is called Universal Class. And Universal Class is one of our online resources that you can take online courses in a huge variety of subjects, everything from hands-on courses, which we will look at tonight, to learning how to use Excel. So again, it's free with your library card. When you sign up for a course, you are actually assigned an instructor that gives you feedback on your work throughout the course. So it's really great. So I thought I would just highlight a few of the courses that are offered in Universal Class that you can go on and take and learn a new skill or hobby. So the first one is candle making. So one of the things that we're going to highlight tonight with our book recommendations is ways that we can do gift giving a little bit more green and by reducing our waste. So there are some courses where you can learn how to make candles. You can learn some can, freeze, drying, and preserving methods, which is a great way to contribute to zero waste. We have Introduction to Gardening. So if any of this has inspired you to become a little bit more green, maybe brought in your outdoor garden and make some of your own food and vegetables for your family, you can learn how to start gardening. There is a sewing 101. So if you want to mend some clothing as opposed to donating it to a thrift store, you can learn some basic sewing techniques and maybe fix that pair of jeans before you decide to get rid of it. And then soap making 101. So we heard from Danielle in the first session, and she talked about some of the products that she makes in her shop. So if you want to learn how to make soap and give it as gifts or use it for yourself and your family, that is a great course as well. So Universal Class is a really, really great resource that we offer, and I highly recommend it. But we will move on to some book recommendations. So again, if any of the topics tonight have inspired you to do more reading or to get more active with your own zero waste, here are some really great books that can help you along in that journey. So the first one is called The Year of Less by Kate Flanders. This is a personal account of her journey through a year-long shopping ban. So it explores the rules that she set out for herself and also what led to her decision to attempt a shopping ban. We've got Join the No Plastic Challenge. So this is a children's picture book, and it is about Nick, who challenges his friends to go a day without using single-use plastics. We have Junkyard Planet, which is an in-depth look at the global recycling industry. We have Everyday Art Packaging. So this is detailed instructions on how to use natural or recyclable material. This is another picture book. So for kids, if you want to start exploring some of these topics with them. So this is a picture book without words, and it follows the journey of a paper bag through its life cycle, starting from a tree and then through 3 generations of a family. We have the Rapagami, which looks really cool, and you can learn how to turn a simple square of fabric into beautifully decorated gifts. This is inspired by the traditional fabric wraps known as furoshiki, Japanese style. So those are some book recommendations that I have for you. And if you want to find any of them, you can find them on our website. It is ocl.net. And if you want to go to our online catalog, it is search.ocl.net. And you can place any of these on hold with your library card. So I'm going to turn it back over to Carrie. And thank you for letting me join you again tonight. Hopefully some of those book recommendations were inspiring to you, and you can go online and put those on hold, access any of our online resources, but particularly check out Universal Class, especially if you miss that feeling of being in school and getting feedback on your assignments, which I always miss.
Thanks, Sarah. Those were wonderful recommendations. Really appreciate that. And thanks to Sarah for all of her help on the back end with making this presentation a success. Now we can pull in Dennis Guy from Oxford County. That would be lovely to see him again. Hi, Dennis.
I'm thinking that maybe I should have stayed on and let Sarah go out. She's going to be a hard act to follow.
Yeah, I get a
great list of recommendations.
You had a pokeroo moment there coming in.
That's right. Okay, well, what a great session. Again, just like the last few weeks, this was a great conversation. Carrie, one of the things that really stands out for me is that Tom and Chris are definitely the real deal. Like, not only are they practicing innovative waste behaviors, they come across as living them. And I met Chris through Smart Energy Oxford Group, which, just like Zero Waste, is focused on taking action to advance the plan. So thank you to both Tom and Chris. That was great. And the Future Oxford Partnership certainly appreciates your time here tonight. To Carrie, our awesome moderator, who has moderated all 3 sessions for us and is dedicated to advancing Future Oxford. Like Carrie, I want to send thanks to Sarah at the Oxford County Libraries. She was on board from the first time we sat down to say, hey, do you think this is something that Future Oxford and the libraries could do together? So thanks for co-hosting, Sarah, and providing some great recommendations. Behind the scenes, we also have a couple people I'd like to thank, Thomasina and Jen, who worked tirelessly to spread the word and make sure that we're all set up and getting the videos posted afterwards and all those sorts of important logistics. And of course, to all of you, whether in the present or the future, thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Future Oxford is all of us, and we are all Future Oxford. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, Dennis. What an interesting conversation we've had today with all of our guests. Looking at institutional waste, it seems to really help when there are zero waste leaders and innovators working at these institutions to create not only zero waste policy decisions, but also waste reduction goals that the whole organization can work towards together. Thank you again for all of our viewers. If you didn't get a chance to share your comments with us online here, you can always get in touch with us in person or over the phone or by email as well too. Also, I would like to have one more visual to pull in our Future Oxford Waste Audit. I'd like you to check out futureoxford.ca to find a free online waste audit tool that you can use to track your waste and see where you can improve. Join us in making Oxford County a circular economy so nothing is wasted. So find that Future Oxford Waste Audit online. Here's sort of what it looks like on the side. You can see the many labels there of different waste that you can check off what is at your house or your office and tally what waste is going in your trash. That way you can track it and find out, like Chris Marion mentioned, and also Tom Butler too, that waste audits are a really good way of finding out what's in your trash and finding out ways to track it and then eliminate it. So find that on futureoxford.ca. Thank you again for joining us. We are looking forward to hearing more from you and seeing some more zero waste innovators in the future. Thanks for joining us. And that's the end of our presentation for today.